Welcome, everyone. While we do our quick round of just name, rank, and serial number, I'm J.D. Miller. I'm the board chair, and we'll go.
Linda Hayes, Director of the Senior Center.
Ellen Jablonski, board member. Leslie James, board member.
Henry Ye, board member.
Janice Long, board member.
Janice Desmond, board member.
Betty Johnson, liaison with Friends of Scituate Seniors.
Lucille Sorrentino, board member.
John Deputy, board of selectmen.
Welcome, everyone. Thanks for all for coming. We've already discussed how chilly it's starting to get out there. We had some things on the agenda. We had to make some quick changes, and but certainly, most importantly, we're going to move some things around here and come and loop back to maybe our normal routine because John's got to get out of here in about 20 minutes. So we wanted to get an update from the Board of Selectmen on A, what's going on your plate generally, and B, more importantly maybe for us, what's going on, your thoughts on or any other updates that you can give us on
Sure.
locations.
Sorry that I have 20 minutes. I have another meeting in Abington I have to be at 6, so I'll be late to that one. But I wanted to make sure I was here to at least kind of update you folks as to what's transpired since we last were together. It's the 26th. Nothing. The short answer is nothing. The situation right now is that we've just hired and we've consummated the contract with our new town administrator who will be beginning on January 3rd. And as a result of the resignation of Jim Boudreau, who is actually a resident of Norwell, former town administrator of Norwell, is the current, now shall we say, in the process of resigning from the town of Linfield. So he will officially be on, starting on January 3rd. He will be in the town hall on a few occasions in the month of December for interviewing the various department heads, talking to them, trying to get feedback, and kind of getting his, I guess you could say, his feedback in the process. To be candid, the fact that the town administrator, Tricia Vicchese, had resigned back in June, the Board of Selectmen was attempting to try to figure out how long we would be able to utilize her services. Now that has constrained the board and has delayed many of the board's actions. Frankly, I think you could probably say that from a policy standpoint, the board looking to try to do different things aside from its normal items that it has to meet. From a policy perspective, I would suggest that we're probably delayed about 8 to 9 months. And what I mean by that is we're supposed to have requests for proposals on various other projects that have not been issued, have not been drafted, so consequently they haven't been dealt with, and they will be dealt with once the new town administrator is in place and once he's able to go forward from it. So I think it's important to understand that we're kind of, we're in limbo with trying to address certain issues. Clearly, the first and foremost issue that the board is going to be confronting is our budget. Budget comes up in December, and we're going to be reviewing it for January, February, and March, so that we can have it in preparation for a town meeting in April. And we're looking at that right now. So, you really don't care about that. I'm just saying that because frankly, you need to understand that
on your plate.
There are multiple issues that we're dealing with as we are the seers, if you will, of the town's finances and the budget to make sure that all departments and all constituents and every resident is able to deal with the police, the fire, the education from the school department with money and issues that they may have, as well as council on aging, as well as other department heads. So I just have to at least give you a heads up. Where does that put us with respect to what transpired? I think we have pretty much been on the, how do I put this? I think we've been on the expectation, what I anticipated with trying to figure out where we're going to be with a future senior center, heritage center, community center, new structure that we're looking at, a standalone building. Decision has been made, and many of you folks were there back in October. So now I think the question is then how do we proceed in this fashion? My goal, my hope is that we will have something for the town to consider at the annual town meeting in April. But, and I put the big but out there, is it possible that we could be delayed? We could be delayed. There are a lot of things that need to be done between now and April that I'm not confident that it will be completed in time. And I'd rather see that we get things done appropriately and that we have things lined up, so that if we end up taking it to town meeting in April, we have all questions answered, and that we are prepared to then take it to the ballot, which would be in May. When I was here before FOSS in December, we talked about, well, what about a special town meeting instead of an annual town meeting, or overlapping any other special town meeting like we're going to have next Tuesday. I do think that's a consideration that we should take a look at, instead of having it in conjunction with the annual or a typical fall special town meeting dealing with finances, like the library, like the middle school and the public safety building.
Did they do that?
We had separate town meetings and separate elections, and I think that's something worth considering as a thought. Obviously, if that's the case, then you're looking at maybe delaying a little further that. But I think the most important aspect is to make sure that we have all ducks lined up so that we can answer questions, because there are going to be a lot of questions people are going to raise legitimately. There are going to be a lot of issues that need to be resolved. So I think timetable, we're looking towards April, but I think we need to see how things are going to factor in the next 4 to 5 months. Now, where do we stand as far as our decision at this point? At this point, we are looking at trying to hire an OPM to be able to take a look at the project and say, okay, what are we looking at with a standalone building? And given the site...
OPM?
OPM, yeah.
What is that?
It is a...
Operating.
It's a project manager.
Okay.
So, operations project manager.
Okay.
I think is what it is. It's the
Like the
technical
clerk
term.
of courts.
So typically, a project, they used to be clerk of the works, and now they're called OPMs
Okay.
as part of the project. They're hired by the town, they represent the town's interest. Each of the projects that have been constructed deal with OPMs, and so they're ours. Which means that we need to come up with a form of a rendering of what we're proposing. I talked to Linda last week, I think, and the next step would be to then get the OPM hired with an idea of, okay, spatially, what are we looking at programmatically, which is why the COA needs to be able to articulate what you're looking for specifically from a, not just square footage, but what you're looking for structurally.
The fact that we somewhat did that with the
Right.
Building Reuse Committee and then hiring Turkey Brown and then using that sort of draft design.
Yep.
It was a pretty
Yep.
comprehensive design.
Yep.
Is that just, you know?
It is not to duplicate the work, it is to begin to say, this is the final, this is what you're looking at. This is not just to kind of structurally and kind of say what we're, our expectations, this is what we want. And with also the option to grow as to what you anticipate.
Sure.
So I think, that's the next thing to say, okay, we're designing the building. Now, we're not physically, architecturally designing the building because we don't want to expend that amount of money yet, because we could step in that and then find out problems if it fail, and that's going to be criticized. Or we say what we did when we did the same thing with the library, we did the same thing with the public safety building, and we did it with the school. We had the renderings, we had the kind of a concrete idea, but architecturally the final product wasn't generated until the end it was passed.
Is that part of why the board declined to select one of the options that were presented by the feasibility study and the Bartman group? In other words, option A, option B, previously
Now, you mean at Gates, or you just saying in
Gates?
general?
At Gates.
Not to my knowledge, no.
Yeah, I think we wanted to zero in on the location.
Yeah, I think
That was the objective.
from what I gleaned from the chairman, Curran, she wanted to kind of say which location
Right.
is what we're looking at. I never, it wasn't to try to specifically identify that.
Right.
I think personally you need to figure out, okay, conceptually this is what we want. And once you know the building is kind of like exactly, then you begin to take a look at various locations within that site, what would fit best. So I think, to me, that would be the prudent way of approaching it.
So is that an architectural design process?
When I say architectural, yes. When I say
Okay.
the real engineering of the structural, this is the components that go into it.
Yeah.
But yes, it would
Okay.
be an architectural design.
Okay.
And does the OPM go out to bid, or is it a position that's advertised?
It will go out to bid.
It goes out to bid.
So what we need to do is we have to allocate the money, and then the next thing, get an RFP to go out to bid for.
Interestingly, I had noted that on the, I'm trying to think of what senior center project recently, I don't think it was Wellesley, but now I can't remember. Bargman was not the architect, but it was the OPM, interestingly. So I don't know if John Catlin liked hearing that, because he thought that's how they were sort of going after some business, you know, and connecting with some of the towns that maybe were going to build senior centers.
I see.
Not that that's irrelevant, but just
Jump in.
they're
I mean,
looking for that.
just lay out one more time here. So the town goes out to bid for an individual, right?
It's a company. It's
Okay,
a-
okay.
yeah.
And does that company then do the design?
That's what, I believe that's what we did the last time. It was Daily, who we used with the school, and I think they also did the public safety building.
Okay.
And so, I'm not sure who did the library, to be candid, but that's where we ended up saying.
Okay.
These are the renderings that we're looking at, and that's what we were presenting to the public.
Okay.
And that's where you get to costs, and that's where you have to come up and say, okay, this is what we're looking at.
Yep.
From the feasibility stuff.
Right, so we need a project manager organization that's gonna help us with specific site location, design, layout on that location.
Correct.
Okay.
One question, you had mentioned an 8 to 9 month delay, which sort of doesn't meet up with the April potential.
Well, I have to be candid with you, I didn't expect the town administrator to resign in June and then have to go through the process of fighting. So my goal when I said to Foss and I said to the Council on Aging was, I wanted this at a special town meeting, which I thought at the time we might be able to have in December. And as a result, we've been backed up, you know, trying to get stuff done.
So we're already partway through that.
So we're through that right now in the process of that delay, correct. And what I'm saying is the business of the town is continuing to be conducted. It's just that some of the policy aspects that we're trying to do has been delayed because there are things between the Commission on Disabilities, trying to get some RFP out on accessibility, can't do that, haven't done that. Some recreation, can't do that. And then I know that there was the golf courses and all. So those are just three of a few other things that we're just delayed trying to address. But not to say that those are priorities. They're very important, but this is the priority for the board.
Mhm. Yeah, that's certainly what we heard, which is great.
Yeah. So I think, so where do we stand from here? I want to know at this point how we can get something final. I'd like to see finalized by January. I'm not sure if that's going to happen or not, but that's my push as far as trying to get an OPM RFP out to get somebody for it.
And do you think that OPM is going to be necessary before there's more discussion on placement on the property? Because that's really a concern, I guess, right now, as far as the property goes. Anybody else want to bring that up?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstood. I thought the property was definitely in place of that old,
Sea Wing?
sea wing, yeah.
No, it's gonna be
No.
on
No,
that.
it's up, we're on the
That's
campus, we
one
need to
of
look at
The whole.
A, B, or C options and or maybe a unique new one.
Right, so I'm just wondering when that discussion might.
Or how can we help? Is there a way for us to help push this process?
Well, I think recommendations would be helpful from COA as to what you see as the pluses and minuses of each of the three possible locations.
Okay.
I know there are certainly people who've already spoken out about certain locations, and I think all three have, as I say, their warts. You know,
All three. Oh,
in other words, when you walk in, you come in, some people don't like it.
oh.
Gates, they don't like it because of the Cudworth
Mhm.
five-way intersection. Some people don't like the location next to the Historical Society because it may create water issues. Some people, neighbors are complaining, don't want it in the backfield because it may, it's too close to them and there's some water issues.
Oh.
Other people are complaining because there's not enough parking. I mean,
That's kind of why we weren't choosing it.
kind of all over the place.
And frankly, we didn't, well, collectively as a group, we didn't go into detail about the pros and cons on that site, but we disregarded completely where the seating is and or, the frontage there because it's not big enough.
Okay, now wait,
feeling.
wait, not C wing. I'm talking about this option C that was from Turkey Run.
Okay,
Okay.
that's in the middle of this, so.
Yeah, yeah. So option A, B from Bergman, and C.
So it was option B from Bargman.
Okay,
that we-
but okay.
So,
I
She's
just
talking about-
want to. I just want to make sure
No,
we're.
C wing was gone and putting one there.
Yeah,
That's-
yeah,
that's
yeah,
what we're-
yeah.
or where it was actually a little bit in
Yeah.
front, closer to the street, and parking was behind the building, you know, it wasn't,
Okay.
it was just not well
So
thought
if
out.
we can fine tune some of that, maybe.
That would be all.
Okay.
And I would probably say, and I'll convey to my board, that before any selection specific was made, we should have, again, a meeting to talk about the pros and cons of each of those possible locations at Kate's. And then I think it would be helpful to be able to say, this is what, the position of the COA is about each site. This is the plus, this is the minus. My thoughts, again, are, the displacement of the fields, although it is an important issue for the town, it is not important for this issue with respect to the Council on Aging and the building. This site is focused on a new senior center, and that's really what I think, my position is, fields will take their own issue. The town's gonna have to address that, the board's gonna have to address that. So it's really, what is going to be the best location at Gates for the senior center?
And then, who do you hope, we should start to look at funding if, if there is any besides, obviously, what we get from the town. But I mean, do you as a board, do you want others to sort of,
Well, I would,
they can?
I mean, I think, I saw that on Gordon's email, so I was trying to pull up, because I want to at least try to address some of these questions. And I'm happy to talk to Gordon offline.
Okay.
And I'm happy to come
I have
back
it here.
and address Gordon's questions.
If you want, here you go.
Oh, nice. So I've always said this from day one. I said it with the library, and I say it with the senior center. I wish there was some funding source, some panacea that will resolve payment for this.
Right.
I don't, whether it's a $9 million project or a $13 million project, I really wish we could find state, federal, some kind of, maybe even private.
We do, but.
But the reality is, we can't bank on that.
Right.
We can
No.
wait all the time we want. I don't know of any. I think a lot of towns have been through this,
Yeah, we haven't uncovered anything.
and I don't think you will.
Right.
Which means that while we can try to search out to try to offset, the reality is this is going to be from an override, a debt exclusion override. And my feeling is that we are not to build a building because it's the cheapest method, or it's the cheapest one. We build it for what we need and what we're going to need. And those costs are going to be the costs, and that's what the town will have to think about, and frankly, I think should pay, because it's the benefit of now and also the future. So if it's the most expensive option, then it's not because we're trying to have a champagne taste,
Yeah.
but it's because we think it's the best option. If it's the cheapest or the middle one, then I'm like, that's what we're looking for. I think that's my feeling. If there was some source of offsetting it, I'd be like, yes.
I know,
Yes.
we've been asking
Right.
for some time as far as free money goes, there really isn't any of those yet.
Did we hear something about two properties coming off? In other words, was it the high school? What was that?
Some of the debt's coming off the
Some
town.
debt.
Maybe
So-
not this year, but next year.
So, one of the things that
That's a helpful.
I have to take a look with Nancy Holt, our finance director, okay? Because we have bonded in the past other projects, example, golf course. Golf course has been paid off. And there was, on an annual basis, a certain amount that's paid towards that project that was passed in 1996. It's come off, so we're no longer paying our taxes towards that. There are other capital projects that are being queued up since then that will be coming off. I don't know what they are at this point. I can get that information and give you an idea.
I want
It totally is.
to say Jenkins School and the rehab in the high school, early in 2000-ish.
It could be, if it's a 20-year bond, Jenkins could be coming off in
Right,
1999
in a year
or
and a half.
2000, or 2020.
Right.
Those are talking points that are for telling the public exactly what we're doing,
Right.
so that everybody understands, because a lot of the concern people have is, that we are bunched up and that we are expending an awful lot now, and there's a lot of money that being demanded of the taxpayers, which is a valid concern.
It is.
There's no doubt about it. But I want to remind people that there's been an awful lot that has not been done in the past 30 years, which has been a huge savings to taxpayers. The sad part is you're going to have to pay the piper at some point. Maybe people don't want to pay the piper now, but you're going to have to pay it at some point in the future. And I will say, being on the board, I've tried to address a lot of issues that have been proverbially kicked down the road. And, you know, at this point in time, this is something that has been kicked down the road for the past 16 years,
1999.
15 years.
But
10 years
as-
ago was the last, I know it's 10,
As
but,
have some other things.
yeah.
And so it is sometimes, in some ways, shape or form, time to sort of step up and, we gotta do this, guys.
That's how I'm looking at it, because I'm like, this is your community, and it's not just for now, it's for the future. And, you know, my feeling is when you come into something, you want to make sure that you're leaving it in a better position when you go. Whether you move out, whether you stay, whether you pass on, the bottom line is you make your community a better place to live. So I think those questions are some questions, but there are multiple questions. People are going to ask what's going to happen to gates, old gates.
Right.
The board's going to address that.
Yep.
We'll make sure that's all covered.
Yep.
They're going to ask about the recreational fields, what happens if this gets
We'll
placed.
still ask about puberty.
Yep, that's going to be on the table.
Yep.
I'm sure people will say, why don't we move down there? You know, it's not going to work. That's the bottom line. You know, it's just not large enough that it's not
One of
going
the
to.
points that the Chairman Curran made when she made the decision on the site was, this answers 2 questions, and I have to answer 2 questions. Council on Aging, gates. So how does it answer gates?
I'd have to say, I have to ask her, because that's her answer. So, you know, by way of background, and I think I explained it that night, when we first looked at gates as a board, we were looking at trying to resolve multiple issues, the least expensive option, of which was town hall. When you do a little building like this that has had some significance to the town, and what can you do with the Council on Aging, with the senior center, and improve its current situation. And at the time when we were looking at it, we thought, well, maybe Gates is a great solution. We looked at Hingham as an example. It's not for purposes of the senior center. I grant you that. And that's the reason why I think you need to stand on a separate building. Gates is still going to have to be dealt with, whether it's going to be a new town hall in the future, whether it's going to be partially departments being placed in there. Clearly one's going in now, which is recreation.
Right, yeah.
Whether it's going to be senior housing in the future, whether you just tear it down and just keep open space for the future of the town, and it's, you know, residents to decide what to do with it. You know, because there's still, one thing the town does not have is it does not have a lot of buildable open space. When I say town, I mean the municipality. There's not an awful lot. So, you know, it's always good to hold on to it because you never know what you're going to need for it and what to do with it in the future. But, you know, the board's going to have to come up with explanations, answering questions to people.
Yeah.
And, you know, because there's going to be a lot of questions about that. What's going to happen? And instead of focusing on the senior center, they're going to say, well, what's happening to Gates? What are you going to do with Gates?
Well, I'm concerned that that'll take a lot of the focus on
Yeah.
building a senior center away. I guess my concern is, the question I think it answers is we're not going to sell gates.
I would suspect
Perhaps.
in her answer that makes sense. But I will say this, even if we weren't there as a location, you're still going to be confronted with that question.
Right.
Whether it was going to be down on the Driftway or whether it was going to be down at the library, they're going to say, well, what's happening
We're
to
doing
Gates?
Gates, right.
It's always, it's that white elephant in the room that people are going to say, what's happening to it? So, and I think there have been people who've come up to me and said, I'm glad you're keeping Gates. I like Gates. Will you keep Gates? Because they probably went to school there and they like the presentation.
Nostalgia of it is
There is.
certainly very good.
Historically, I don't think there's a historical component to it other than Cutmore. But the
Emotion. It's emotional.
curbside appeal is very nice,
Yeah.
but there is.
Jerky Brown thought so. He thought it was a jewel for the community to hang on to as architects.
Right.
My biggest fear of it, though, was I was a big proponent of making that town hall and doing stuff, but after what happened at the library and finding out there was an awful lot of asbestos and the cost to remediate it, and makes me very concerned about what's behind that's a big issue the town needs to understand, because while we might want to renovate it and put different departments in there, it could be a very
It could
costly
be, right.
proposition. So we need to know that before that happens. And the same thing's gonna happen whether or not you agree with senior housing. If some big company says, I'm gonna buy it, and I wanna develop it, that's a big cost.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah. Does anybody else have anything specifically for John? Because I know he's gotta get out of
The
here.
first one, the question here about how the Board of Selectmen is going to get behind this to sell it. Or is that going to be something you'll work with us on?
Absolutely. I mean, we were, I don't want people to think that we are, because I know there's a lot of people out there who seem to think that we're just pandering and just placating
like,
people and saying, well, yeah, we want a senior center, we're not. This has been since 2014 or 13, that Sean, Tony, and myself, Joe Norton, Rick Murray, said, these are the things that we want to accomplish. And senior center is one of the ones that we said we want to accomplish. Joan and Rick are no longer on the board. Sean and Tony are, and obviously we have new board members. They're committed to it. We're committed to it. And I want to see this project at least passed. Whether or not I'll be on the board when it gets actually built, I want it passed. So my feeling on it is, am I committed to it? Absolutely. And, you know, despite people who may think otherwise, I was of the opinion initially, Gates made sense. I don't think it makes sense at all. I've seen the other sites. They have pros and cons. This may not have been the site that I preferred, but it's the site that I want everybody to get behind to get it done.
We do too.
Because if we don't, it's going to fail. And, you know, again, after the last failure, it took 10 years before we finally are trying to address it. So is the board committed? Absolutely. So we need to make sure that a lot of the questions are going to be answered. We need to know financially what the cost is going to be to the taxpayers. We're going to need to know constructing, you know, that kind of like what's coming off, what's coming on, and that thought of phasing it, you know, what's that going to cost for people? So I mean, yes, you know, we are. And I know I wanted the most expensive site, I think. Gordon was saying we did pick the most expensive site. That's assuming that we replicate another field as a part of the project. If you were to take that $1 million off,
Right.
then you're not. And I don't know the numbers, I don't have the,
Yep.
in front of me, but I would think then it's in the wheelhouse, just like the other two projects.
Yep.
Not maybe Driftway, but certainly the library.
Yep.
And as I say, we have CPC funds, the school and the recreation commissions in the process of looking at other lands. So again, that's not, to me, determinative of the site. If there is a field, there is.
so that number gets batted around now, but it isn't really that number necessarily.
Correct. Correct. That's assuming that we rebuild the field there. And I'm not necessarily wedded to that now. I was, not for purposes of having the senior center there, I had some other ideas, but the senior center is going there, then I don't want that to be a part of the equation because it can take away from it. How involved will the CAOA be? I think Gordon's idea of meeting bi-monthly is not a bad idea. I think it makes sense to, for specific purpose, to maybe talk about where do we stand. I think before you actually set that up for December, let me get back and find out where we stand with getting an OPM, because once this starts moving, I do think it's wise to get together to talk about where do we stand, what do we need to do. Because meeting once a month to talk about it for 10 or 15, 20 minutes, half hour is not.
We need to have dedicated time more consistent.
We do.
That's all.
Especially, there's a lot to do as far as beforehand. even,
Yes.
Meeting with all different groups and all different community people but we need to know, we will be on the same page, and we have to answer some questions.
Right. And I think, you know, any public meeting that we're going to have, it will be, I'm certainly happy to be there to address answers or questions, and members of this council should be there.
Sure.
And So they did it with the schools, we did it with public safety, and we'll have a number of them. So that at least people understand there has been an opportunity to answer your questions. Bear in mind, there are going to be people who are totally against this regardless. That exists. And there are going to be people, and I understand financially, they may not be able to afford it, and that's legitimate. There are other people who are not. They're just there to squash it from the get-go. Those are the ones who raise a lot of questions, and they may come out and say they want something, but they're not. And those are the ones that you have to be prepared to answer the questions. Because the other people who are going to listen to the answers, they're the ones who want to know, the reality of the answer, why. So,
Well,
I'm
thanks.
just going to say, if there's anything else, I know the grants and
Yeah.
I think he said something,
Yeah.
and you
Being
mentioned-
involved in the decision-making process.
No, does anybody else have any other questions? John's,
No, he's not.
John's got,
That's all right, no,
Something's
it's a good time to
I think one of the
answer.
big roadblocks or hurdles will be the issue of fields for a lot of people in town. And, I mean, you said earlier, just tonight, that, we have lacking open space, and if we take away another field, we already lost one in the middle school. That's gonna be a big issue for a lot of people.
I think, Janice, this is what I'm,
And it's just,
So,
that's
I-
also a
I-
reality.
I'll share you with some thoughts. Because when we say open space, we have a lot of open space, but it's under restrictions, conservation restrictions. And as a selectman, one of the things I've been trying to do is say when people donate land to the town, it's like anything, or sell land to the town, I'm like, I really don't want the restrictions on it, because you never know what the town may need now or in the future. So I hate to kind of tie the future hands of the future board. So that's why I say open space that can be utilized is always at a premium. So, one thing that I've looked at is obviously the land behind Central School, which is one of the options potentially. Housing Authority is interested in that land potentially. If this project, the friendly 40B that they're proposing is successful, then maybe there's expansion in that direction. If that's the case, they may be open and receptive to swapping the driftway, which could be possibly used for future field use too. There is the swap that we had with a future 40B project off of Booth Hill Road called Bartlett Fields. And they gave a number of acres. We were just talking about it kind of on Tuesday night with respect to another property. And there could be fields there. That's one of the requests for proposals that we've not had an opportunity to put out to bid to find out if they're wetlands, just how much land is there. If there is, that's another option. There is land directly next to Cushing School, which is also abutting the football field. It's all wooded, but you could put some field there, and it's an opportunity. So there are sites that we have, and the reality is the way to do it is to maximize it. If you have a lot of land, it's better to put all the, start up in the building of it because you can maximize it. Otherwise, then we'll have to go to the regional low areas and find park space.
And how do those get funded generally? I mean, is that up to that?
So I would anticipate that we're looking at the CPC, Community
You
Preservation.
can do that.
You can, and which is why, from my standpoint, we need to be cautious about what we're spending on CPC funds because we know we have this issue. Instead of spending the money down each year and then say, well, we need a lot more, we have to back away for it. And so I'm hopeful that the CPC will do that, I hope. And that would be the way that I'd look to fund it. And there may be some leftover, like I said, we've been very fortunate to come under budget on our projects, the school in particular. There may be some options there with some financing that the town's going to have to address in the future, and I think that's another source. So, again, I'm very concerned about fields. I think it's very important. It's an ongoing issue for the past 10, 15, 20 years, but that's not the primary right now. It's just senior center. So we'll figure that out. And
No, I mean,
as you say,
I think as part of selling this would be to have some like,
an answer.
right,
I agree.
concrete answers for people who are gonna definitely ask that question.
yeah, I think.
Where are you gonna put the field or,
Well, but even if you have that answer,
Mm-hmm.
I think just by taking away the field, it's gonna introduce an element that people are just gonna reject.
I agree. I think that's why.
Unless you have a field
You did have
already
an answer.
Like
completed.
if they know that we're we're definitely gonna work on replacing that field someplace else, and, I mean, we still haven't replaced the field. I call it the field hockey field, because that's where I play field hockey in the front of the middle school.
Didn't they put that in the back of,
No, I'm saying when I was
Oh.
there, when I was back, was the field hockey field and the softball fields,
right.
among other things, but.
So my hope is that, I don't know where they're at, so I gotta follow up with Bill Lowett and find out what's going on with the Rec Commission. But I thought they were trying to do a study. Is the area next to Cushing and the present football field would be a real savior as far as salary.
Yeah, he had presented at school committee for like a,
Complex.
yeah, with, but turf.
That's another
Yeah.
issue. But I'm looking at the field as my feeling is turf might be a future issue because of the cost. But you're absolutely right, to your point. If we take away a field, then is that going to deter people and encourage them to vote against it?
Even if you move it, you know, from one way to the
I think
other.
if they know it's gonna be replaced, then,
A plan.
yeah,
Well, it has to be
Even
done,
if it's
it
not
has
the
to be
same
done
spot.
before you take it away.
yeah, true.
And that's a 2-year proposition. To get a field up and running, it takes 2 years for it to really take. So, which is why I say I don't want that to become the tail that wags this, because
No.
now we're looking
but
at 2 years. But it is a valid
Yeah.
concern because of the issue. But I mean, now you can maybe appreciate slightly, these are issues that the board's confronting. You know, we're trying to deal with fields, we're still dealing with fields, trying to deal with council on aging. And I think what we have to do is say, okay, we're addressing, and in the meantime, this is more pressing, we need this, you know, community building. Other questions, because I'm happy to.
We know what we're up against.
Anybody here, questions?
You know, let us know how we can help. We can certainly, you know, begin to try to whittle down some thoughts on design, programming, et cetera, but, you know, we just want to be involved.
You have to be. We did it with the school, and the school was saying, this is what we want.
Yeah.
And that's, they dictated the design. Same with police and fire, they sat down with both chiefs and said, what are you looking for? And that's where we came up with, you know, the police looking for the salary report, looking for the safety, security. Chiefs came up and said, I really need 3 bays, although it turned into looking for 2, and we had to go back, I meant the 3rd. Same thing with the library, you know, we talked to the librarian saying, all right, what are you looking at? And so it really is gonna come down to.
The OPM.
Yeah,
Let's
well, it's gonna come down to.
But yeah, as soon as that's in place, then we can begin to meet with that
Correct,
and begin to shape.
you got it,
Right.
because you're designing,
We have a vision.
yeah,
Right.
you're designing, and that's, to me, the important thing. And so as far as involvement, you're actively involved, you know, and with the decision on the site, I'll ensure that you are involved and know what's going on, right, from my board. No decision will be made before you folks are able to meet with us and talk about the site. If that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
All right, okay, I'm so sorry.
No, you gotta go.
On to Abington. Ooh.
Abington for it's a legal thing, from the county bar. The board of directors, I've missed their meetings because of town issues. Last 3 months, so
Oh, no.
I've missed more than I. Folks, thank you very much.
Thanks for coming, John.
Look forward to seeing you.
right.
We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Great.
Bye.
Good night.
Okay, so, why don't we go through liaisons? I know, Joan Powers is not here. She simply asked me to make sure I announced that, among other things, that St. Luke's will be hosting its community dinner November 26th, Sunday, and that there will be no dinner in December. So, St. Luke's community dinner, November 26th evening, but nothing in the month of December, over the holidays. So, she just wanted me to pass that along. So, Betty, what's going on with FOSS?
FOSS is up to 415 members now. We had a really successful trivia night in October. That was a real nice moneymaker. And the next thing coming up for FOSS is December 2nd, a Christmas fair, and maybe we'll pass this around. It's going to be at St. Mary's as it was last year, and we're expecting a good turnout for that. If I can take 5 minutes of your time and just speak to something that is a real concern to me, I would like to address the board with some issues that are important to me, and I have a couple of questions relative to the decision that was made at the meeting on the 26th of October when I wasn't here. I did hear about it, and I have to say that I was appalled when I heard about it, and so were the people that contacted me. I was appalled to think that the Board of Selectmen wouldn't take into consideration the recommendation of the Council on Aging in terms of location, or the Friends of Scituate seniors, or the many seniors that showed up and wanted and expected to be heard. I was appalled that the Board of Selectmen would recommend placing a senior center on a property with an abandoned building. That bothers me. I was appalled that they would make that recommendation and vote to place a senior center adjacent to one of the worst intersections and most congested areas in the town of Scituate. Also a property known to have sewage issues and where there's likely to be construction issues. Deconstruction, reconstruction, or the raising of a building is going to happen. I was also really upset that the cost vastly exceeds the cost of the site which was preferred by this council and the Friends of Scituate seniors and most of our senior citizens. I had a conversation with a friend recently that said a member of the Board of Selectmen had spoken several years ago and said, look, it's the gates or nothing.
You're still on the board?
Someone on the Board of Selectmen said
Still
that.
is on the board today.
No, and I don't think so, no. I also have a letter here that was sent to the Mariner last Friday, and I'll take less than 3 minutes to read you 2 paragraphs. I'm quoting. This is from the letter. After attending the meeting, our strong impression was that the vote to proceed with the Gates School property was a foregone conclusion, even after almost 2.5 hours of discussion. A hearing is not a hearing if those who took the vote were not really listening. Prior to the vote, people spoke at length of the pros and cons of other sites, among them one on the Driftway at New Kent Street and 3 different ones at the library site. The Gates property seemed to come under discussion from some invisible left field and only in the last 20 minutes or so by the selectmen. 12 people personally told us afterwards that they felt blindsided by the vote and that the selectmen seemed in retrospect to have already made up their minds and that the process seemed more like going through the motions of a hearing. And here's a word you don't hear too often, hornswoggled. At least 2 people told us they felt that many left the meeting, the hearing, with a bad feeling. That's end of quote. I just have 2 questions that I would like you to think about. Number 1 is, have you accepted this choice by the Board of Selectmen, and will you support it regardless of the cost? And do you think that if we came before the Board of Selectmen with a petition with 100 or 500 or 1,000 signatures, that they would revisit the situation with a more open mind or minds? Or do you think, as my friend was told, that it's the gates or nothing?
Well, I could answer that, but I'm not going to right now.
Why?
Why? If not
Because
now,
I'm not the board.
if not now, when?
I have my own.
Or if not you,
I mean, I
who?
think generally speaking,
would
the
you-
answer to the first question is yes,
Yes.
we are.
Right.
And the answer to the second question is
Yes, we are what?
We are.
Yes, we are,
In support of.
regardless of the
Of moving
cost.
forward with gates.
Well,
Because I think what you need to keep in mind is the cost, no matter what is said, is gonna be tied into the renovation, construction, raising of the gates, and the relocating fields and all that. So it's gonna start at 13 million, and that's not where
well,
it's
I
ending.
think we heard John potentially say otherwise, and I'm not saying that, you know, one word is the way it is moving forward, but, you know, I think we have to have some faith.
Like you said, they're gonna leave the gates.
And a petition would be a problem, I think, because it would
They're gonna
delay
leave
us
the gates.
Right.
further, and it would
It's an empty building.
fracture what we have for support potentially now. So those are my very brief thoughts on both of those questions.
Possibly,
And I
possibly,
think
but
that
I think it's a
although-
very, I wish you had,
Been there?
no,
It wouldn't have
I
mattered.
wish you had raised what you just raised when
Right,
he was
what,
sitting
Jones?
here.
He would just go on and on and on, and we'd all be asleep. You know, I mean,
I'm sure.
and I
think-
really wanted, my comments were really for the board, you know.
And
We had heard issues before the meeting about problems with the driftway. That came up.
Correct.
There was a,
But
Every
that was refuted
Right, that was
That was
refuted in the
refuted.
meeting.
at the meeting.
Well, I do want to clarify
What
too,
were they
because
doing
it
then?
started to sound 2 weeks ago, you know, there that we were not aware of the land swap, but we were.
Really,
No, no,
We were
it
very
was
much
something
aware of
else
that.
that was
with the
raised.
deed, there was an issue with the
That's
deed.
right.
It was a
It was a
That was-
non-fiction,
it
but
was
it
a
turned out to be a
non-issue.
non-issue.
That was an opinion presented, as it turns out, you know, of one board member, I
then they
believe.
changed about.
And no, we weren't necessarily aware of that, or maybe, you know, smatterings, but we did know about the other thing, and it began to sound like we were saying we weren't aware. And so that reflected badly, and I did want to clarify that we were very much
But then
made
the
aware of the
turbine
land
came
swap.
up,
Right, I think the
and what was the
board,
third thing?
the board's hearing a lot of
The smell.
complaints about location on the driftway being adjacent to
Mm-hmm.
turbine and.
I think
Well,
the
I'm not sure if
board
those
is
complaints were
hearing a
about the
lot.
turbine, the Board of Selectmen's getting complaints about the turbine.
That's a.
Yeah.
And does that mean they just didn't, they also didn't want to have to deal with the senior center?
I think it's a
So, I
very
mean,
entirely different issue.
Yeah,
Turbine,
it is.
you're sleeping is very different than going in and out of a building in the daytime.
But
Yeah.
anyway, you know.
I think
that's-
those are very strong, valid points. I think we should discuss it. I don't think we should shut it down. I believe that if we move ahead with gates, we are going to hit other situations that will delay us.
Well,
I think that's a probability.
That's the process, I mean, that's the process now, moving forward. The process is design and, you know, vetting, I guess, and
We have a design, you even raised that, we have a design.
we have a draft design by one architect that we haven't purchased,
Right.
so we're not married to that, or they haven't, you know, approved that. They used it to see what the feasibility was of placing that size building on any of those pieces of property. So we don't I mean, we liked it, but we don't really have a design.
What was, I know Board of Selectmen didn't take anybody's recommendation. What was our recommendation?
Driftway.
Driftway.
Driftway. So, if that's the case, you know, and this special town meeting, you know, December may not happen, April may not happen, I think we have enough time to really revisit this based on the input of, you know, other groups, right? Instead of just, our effort has been kind of swiped by the wayside, and, you know, we just follow the selectmen's choice.
Well, I'm
But
not
it
sure
is
about
their
that.
decision to make.
Mm.
It's
Right.
not our decision to make.
But they didn't take anybody's recommendation.
Right,
It's-
right, but
I
they
agree,
don't, they
it's
also
like-
don't have to. So I
Right,
think
they
we're
don't.
between a rock and a hard place. It is their decision, and I don't think a petition going back to them is gonna change their mind. I think
Right.
they've made up their mind.
And I think
That
that
this is
they're,
gonna be
again,
it.
they're trying
So
to,
if we want one, we've gotta go with the flow.
I agree with
Unfortunately.
you because we want it no matter what.
Well,
Well, we want it to be done right, and if.
I don't want it no matter what.
I
Right.
do.
I mean, if
But I do
Better than
think,
this,
Hmm?
better than what we got
Well,
here.
No, no, I mean, I don't want it no matter what, in the sense that I don't wanna, sell out or
No.
go along with what the selectmen
But if she-
voted just because we have no other choice. I mean, we kinda don't, but.
if we can somehow
If we can
translate the
influence
reasons
it.
that we liked the Driftway, that you collectively liked the Driftway, and
Right.
try to blend those into what they are proposing, then,
Well,
then we win.
part of the reason why we liked the Driftway was it wasn't the traffic. So I don't know, in that whole area,
But I'm also, I'm also
Yeah.
assuming, and that's a stretch, I know, but that the community might win, and this can be part of our campaign, and was gonna be a little bit part of my report, but, the community might win because the traffic pattern does need to be looked at and rectified for us
But
to be
I don't-
there,
I
and
don't think
anything
that
else
you-
to go there.
Right, and I don't know if they're aware, I mean, I think that they can't make any changes at the end of, what they call the chute, at gates with the two, I don't think,
What's the shoot? I don't
Yeah.
know.
the chute is where the buses come down, they, into the intersection of Cudworth,
Where it deposits
First
at
Parish,
Cudworth,
and-
okay.
Yeah, that's what the bus drive is
Where
called,
people used to
chute.
exit.
Yeah,
I also think
because it's
that-
like, I think it's historic, so that's, I mean, hopefully not, but.
I think that bringing it up again and going with a list of names, we're just pushing it along further. I mean, I know this is what they want. I like the initial thing that we all talked about. I love Kent Street, right? However, they're in the driver's seat.
You're right.
And when I say I want something, it's just that, let's get it done somewhere.
Let's hope they're accurately taking the pulse of the community. Let's hope that's, but they
Excuse me, let's happen.
taking the
No,
pulse.
well, what community though?
We didn't do that, did we?
Yeah.
I'm
they're looking at-
suggesting that they know what that pulse is.
They're looking at some of the results that they got
They are the
online, the
decider.
survey.
Yeah, that's the
They're
bottom
the
line.
decider. Yeah.
I think, the way I feel about it is that, there was a lot of work that we did, we put in to coming up with our decision. And did not have that seriously looked at.
This disregard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, with the survey coming out after with them adding gates, it was just,
Yeah, agreed, and it was
And if
left
you
field.
recall, at the end of this hearing, the Board of Selectmen said they would really like it in the old gates.
And that was
Oh, yeah.
upsetting to
That
hear.
was-
No, I did
Yeah.
not enjoy
So-
that.
and the whole process at the end, I was kind of thrown, I didn't, it was,
But we were all,
well, and how they voted, it was very strange to me. I guess I thought they would vote, like, look at each,
right.
property, vote
On
on,
individual
and
proposals.
I don't know, and they just nominated one and that,
I
they
think
went
this
with it. You know,
does,
it was-
if it does resolve that they're not gonna sell that property.
Well, personally, I don't even want that to be senior housing if I was to say that. I mean, again, I go back to not wanting the senior
I
center
don't think it's gonna
obscured
be
by.
anything, I don't know how they could, regardless of whether or not we are for that property for the senior center. Gates alone, I don't know how they're gonna do anything.
But
with
that's
it.
not our
With-
problem, that's.
No, I know, I'm just
No,
saying,
it is to a
I know,
point.
I'm just saying.
Will it be
fact that they
possible to
don't-
build a senior center there and then proceed with the demolition of the Gates building after?
How do we
a
know they're gonna
senior-
even how do we know
Or-
they're gonna demolish it?
Or the reconstruction of it, or
And
the
even-
refurbishment of it, something
No,
has to be
that's
done.
It's gotta be the first things first. I would believe that if the center is at the forefront, I don't believe, I mean, my mind says that they're not gonna start the senior center and also this project. This is a big deal.
I think they're gonna have to come up with
Gates is
some
a big
vision
deal. We're
toward the
talking
future.
millions.
Yeah,
Before they
Mega-
really.
Mega millions.
I think with,
That's
and one thing Maura said
Wanted
that bothered me
This is
was
what
that
they
it,
wanted, and so
by putting it on
let's
gates,
not-
it kinda answers
Can't
solve two
gates.
problems.
And I wish I'd gotten up and said, I don't want you to put it, choose gates, just for the sake of
We told them that.
putting something
They
there.
seem to think they're.
You know, so
And
that's-
it doesn't really, frankly, solve the problem
No, no.
of Gates,
No,
because
it
it
was, no
just,
matter where the senior center ended up, people will still be
But-
asking what's gonna happen
Right.
with Gates.
I don't mean to say we shouldn't be vocal about what we need and want. I
Right,
just don't want to shoot us in the foot.
yeah.
Right.
And
Well, I was
again,
gonna say,
and I
you said
agree.
the gates is the white elephant, I was gonna say, well, you just made it whiter, because it's.
Right. And the fact that the Board of Selectmen doesn't know what they're up against inside the building
Yeah.
is just astounding to me. How can they make any plans to do anything if they don't know what they're dealing with?
Well, I think they know what they,
Yeah.
like structurally, what they might be.
Well,
It's a
no, but they don't know what this
120-year-old
is.
building.
Yeah.
They know that there's gonna find
It's gonna be bad.
Okay.
stuff back there that's
Oh,
not.
yeah.
Yeah. But I would just.
Even tearing it down could be expensive.
I concur.
Harder.
Okay.
But I don't think we have a choice.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't,
Right.
well, it's.
I agree, but I don't think there's anything we can do.
I didn't realize that that's what they want.
We're gonna have to try to make, just work harder for this.
To make what we want to have happen
Yes,
on,
right.
on the Gates campus, right? And garner support from the town, we'll need votes, we'll need an override. There's a lot of work to be done, regardless of where,
Right,
with this, honestly, so.
yeah.
We should move on.
Thank you for
Yeah.
saying what you needed to say.
Legitimate, but we
I
can-
think it's important.
Thanks for letting me say it.
Should we hop right down the list here to October
the
minutes,
minutes.
which I
The minutes.
did not see prior, so.
Nobody did.
Anyone wants to take a look at minutes?
I didn't remember to
Did I
send them
not
late.
put the time?
I don't think so.
Start.
No, I didn't, so I figured we could add it if you have it.
Oh, from last month?
Yeah. I guess if there's meeting probably more than that.
You were probably gonna go check your notes. I do it all the time.
What's the minutes in attachment?
No, I sent
Ben,
them.
did you have?
No,
you
they're
have this?
just in your packet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you guys were late, sorry. With it. Do you have one?
I sent them to my after. Every month, I'm not doing right away.
Yeah. I'll do my best, it's been lots of moving targets.
So I don't have any questions off the top of my head, but I do, well, I'm done this, but I do have a question on the tax work-off improvement. Two seniors assisted you with updating the Trinitarian Congregational Church.
Actually, only one senior assisted me.
Okay, but what about updating the COA database?
This was just something I mentioned that it wasn't a very big job. It
Okay.
was something for emergency
Or
preparedness.
is that a tax write-off to help you build an electronic database? Or-
No, it wasn't that.
Okay.
It was something that I offered that I thought we would have in our database for them. And it didn't end up having a whole lot about for emergency contact info for certain seniors that
Okay.
the church was interested in having.
Okay.
So it wasn't a very big job, and they can help improve our database, and they have.
Okay.
But I just mentioned that.
Okay.
It was only one, but
Does anybody have any questions on minutes? Do we hear a motion to accept the minutes from October 12th?
I make a motion to accept the minutes for October as amended. Second.
okay.
Okay, very good. Linda, I think we're teeing it up for you.
Okay, my turn, I'll do my best. You know, I did bullet items really for my report, and I gave her some highlights at the top, just so I didn't necessarily talk too much. The MCOA, which is the Mass Council on Aging Conference, was in October, so I went for 2 days, Jenny went for 1, Lisa went for 2 days, which has not happened in the past, but we did work that out this time, and I thought it would be good for them. We had our health fair, as many know, 1 day at St. Mary's, which was successful, and that is mentioned in the report. We had maybe 77 people attend, which is less than last year, actually, when it was at St. Luke's, which is a little disappointing, because I think it was really a better venue, but I think maybe the parking,
There's a lot going on.
I guess, could be. A little bit of a complaint about parking, because there is a walk with regard to parking, which funny enough is, you know, you think about the senior center, and one of the designs had the parking, you know, sort of far away. It's about like what St. Mary's is. And, you know, we don't want to have to walk, of course. So, where am I on that? I guess I kind of jumped into that. So, I mean, it was successful. Lisa, kudos, did a great job. We had one of our tax work-off people had helped her a great deal. We ended up doing lawn signs, purchasing and setting up lawn signs, which I think was good marketing. We can reuse those next year with changing the date. We also used money, but got some sponsorship, which came close to covering the tote bags that we had printed, so I think those were a nice touch. And often during the health fair, it used to be that exhibitors would provide bags, but really they haven't been. So then I realized, well, that's a good opportunity for us.
Everybody does.
That's what's great with healthcare, wasn't it?
Yeah. But, so actually, that was nice. So all in all, that was great. And obviously, we've been sort of focused on the senior center site study and whatnot, so that's taken a lot of my time. I have received my budget assignment for my new budget, so somebody was willing to help me on that when I get back from Florida. And then senior tax work off year end, it's just been a lot of collection there. And JD and I did 2 segments of seniorities, I think, this past month.
I think you're right.
We did. Anyway, I did get to meet, this was a little unusual, I did get to meet the 3rd bullet point on the front page with a representative from MAPC, which I actually can't remember, Metropolitan. It's sort of a planning commission, which is interesting. And they're doing a municipal vulnerability plan, and it was nice to be invited by Nancy Durfee, who's our coastal resources officer, who's sort of working, not sort of, is working with them. But she included me, she included Pat Gallivan, who was the conservation director, and he's now retired but consulting. So she interviewed us just about what we thought were some of the impacts on, in my case, seniors with regard to weather, climate changes, and, you know, storm and emergency management and whatnot. So it was a very interesting opportunity, I guess. So they're doing a report that they're doing for the town, and we'll get to see that. I did submit a grant request to the Cultural Council for a community drumming circle through Social Conservatory, so I hope they get, that would be fun. Just it's a one-off thing, but then you can also do it as an activity. I did meet with a graphic artist, I wanted to let you know, someone who does work with the chamber, who did something, logo for this Scituate, what do we call it, the animal shelter, and many other things around town, so she is very familiar with Scituate, and I talked, I swear, nonstop for an hour to sort of give her who we were and background, which I never do. And then I even emailed her afterwards. It was a couple of weeks later, but I had another idea. I thought I didn't want to mess with her process, but at the same time, you never know. So I'm looking forward to seeing what she comes up with. You know, I did pay another woman a little bit of money for her ideas, and they just weren't coming together for me. I just didn't think they had the impact. I was looking for something sort of elemental that really could be duplicated and used for branding. So that's what we're hoping for. We have our 3rd Artist of the Month, which is a nice program that Joanne Pepindre is, you know, really spearheading, which is just nice. Granted, people have to come in to see it.
So what is that, everything on the wall?
No, just the ones in this area, although the dog was John White from last month, but we don't want it to go. We like the dog, so John's staying, and this is Betty Tufang Chin, who is around there. And then really Joanne Papandrea mostly populates the rest of our wall. Nicely enough, we have good stuff. We did have a staff meeting this past week, of course, but we were treated to lunch, pizza but from Maria's by a woman who's been using our services and coming to activities since I've been here, and certainly I imagine before. But she was moving to Florida, most of her kids are there, and in a beautiful looking 55+ community, very excited. But she treated us to lunch, and she wasn't even here.
Very nice.
So, moving on a little bit, we did have Karen Canfield at the men's breakfast last week. No, actually, it was Tuesday.
Tuesday.
So, you know, she did get drilled a little bit, but not like I thought, not on what I thought she would get drilled on. So it was completely different. Men are just completely different, I
A
guess.
lot of water.
A lot of water talk.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And she deftly handled them, I think, when it came time to talk about the senior center, which she was willing to do. It didn't end up being, you know, really on their minds quite as much. But anyway, she was gracious to do it. And next time is Chief Stewart, which is also nice. He's great to have come around. Also mentioned the Halloween party with Magical Moon Foundation, which, you know, I didn't get a lot of attendance from seniors, and it's really too bad because they did go to a lot of effort, and it was beautiful. Beautifully done, a very nice event that I think would be a nice tradition, so certainly had I got it in the newsletter or we had planning done a little bit sooner, I think it would have been something. And some of those who came saw that and were impressed and pleased, and it was nice. Donna Green's looking for doing something more with us, so that would be nice, I guess, if we could work together with her. And then the other thing I guess maybe I want to mention before I forget, so the last bullet point under programs, reviewing accounting instructor fees. So I all of a sudden have less money than I'd like. And you know, we've always paid our instructors just through our activities, so it's basically money in, money out. But, you know, then sometimes instructors can't depend on the number of people coming based on what they're paying to make their time worthwhile. And one of them is commuting, and she's very popular, so she
Fees
needed
are guaranteed.
a little bit of a guarantee. So we made one exception, and then suddenly there's another exception, and now others want, and frankly, I can't afford to do that.
Yeah.
Give everybody a guaranteed amount of money. Now, the class that I've just had to increase the fees for, because it started as a grant, and then they had to pay a little, but then I got another money from the formula grant, which was great. I didn't mind doing that at all. But now I had to pull it because of Jill's extra 10 hours to make her full-time. I put on the formula grant, and basically kind of wiped us out a little bit, other than some of the operational things that I've put onto the formula grant. So just saying, all of a sudden, we had to raise the fees, trying to look for a creative way to manage that and not overburden them, make it consistent, make it fair, certainly, not even to keep money, just so that they're not paying too much for exercise and can do what they need to do. So just thought I'd mention that because need to look at maybe creative ways or somehow how to support that. We lost our meditation instructor, I guess, because
Can you guarantee them a minimum? Like
that is the idea.
but if they're used to getting 18 people, you could say, we're always gonna make sure you're at least covered for 10.
Right.
You do that.
That gives them a little bit more of a,
Well, it's sort of, yeah, there is an amount that they expect.
yeah, okay.
And if that's 10 people, then that is 10 people, but it may not be depending on how much they're charging. So we've just
Yeah.
been asked to do it again for another.
Did they tell you that they have to have minimum?
One, I knew what she wanted. She probably want more, but we gave her the 50 a class. But another probably would have liked that, and I kept it, because she wasn't getting the same numbers, so. But then, you know, they could raise their fees. So frankly, yoga is the most expensive thing that we offer, and I wish it was lower. I think it's high for our population. So that would be a difficult one. Whereas others who might be charging 5, it's not an awful lot. If they want a guarantee, okay, but that means more people, so short of them raising their funds, it's tricky. So, you know, a couple of ideas have been raised, we just haven't brainstormed a whole lot. If anybody has any, that would be welcome, but, you know, maybe a punch card, but even the idea of doing that means more consistency among the classes, so because the instructors have basically set the rate, maybe based on, you know, somebody might have wanted to charge 8, and I might have talked them down to 5 or 6, because, you know what, that's what we really should be charging. I mean, I have always hoped that someone doing this for us isn't really trying to make a living off of us altogether, but realizes they're partly volunteering. You know, Chris Kozlowski is a perfect, I made her go to 4. She was 3. It's like, you know what, go to 4. Because that's not too much to ask, and, you know, let her walk out with just a little bit more money, gas money. But, so some understand that and some are, you know, are trying to make a living, but we can't always support that.
Yeah.
But we don't want to lose a good instructor, and in particular, our balance for life person is, she's now commuting from Norton, and but at the same time, I went there today and explained to them the situation, and I was trying to make it easy. It was an idea, it's gonna take some thought, but 1 class 5, 2 classes instead of 10 would be 8, and 3 classes instead of 15 would be 10. But, you know, managing that is not easy either, but that's how I was trying to mitigate that for them. But there were 25 people there, 25 people, and mind you, 25 people at the community building in the front room. That wasn't even enough room. Can't have 25 people exercising in that room. Just as an illustration of how small that building really is, you know, low ceiling, So, and I moved my Tai Chi class from there, even though it's been there for the last few months, which was nice for the summer, and it's a nice view, and they do like looking at it, but I'm back at St. Mary's. Partly because they wait for me to open the door, and it's getting chilly. And, you know, partly because honestly, it's not an ideal space other than the view. The inside space is not that. Granted, at St. Mary's, sometimes we have to dance around the tables, but that's okay. So I just wanted to mention that as a challenge right now that we're just trying to bang out, but it's not easy. And again, my formula grant really came up short. I had to cut a lot. So I don't know whether I'm looking for it in the municipal budget or not, but we do have that program line item money, but again, that's all of a sudden I'm using that a lot because I'm having to subsidize the new phone system through that as well. Because I only have, you know, less than half of the cost of that was budgeted in the municipal budget, which is fine, but it turns out it's 5,000, not 2,000. So I have that money, and I think it is programmatic and will support us much better, and we need it, but, you know, I'm not getting money in.
Right.
Let's put it that way. We used to get more donations. We don't really get those a lot right now. And we could solicit, but, so maybe we will. I did also want to mention, if any of you are interested, and I included in the packet, the agenda at least, so on November 17th, which is next Friday, is a regional legislative breakfast, which, actually, funny enough, they did it last year, but forgot to include us. So, well, partly because Duxbury's rep is both, you know, he's Pembroke and Duxbury, and Kingston used to be Duxbury, so they would do a lot together anyway. And Marshville just forgot that Jim Cantwell apparently forgot he was also ours. So, but anyway, this year we're in it. So it's not only our state reps, but the state senators, and also David Stevens, who is the executive director of our Mass Council on Aging organization. So he's really there to kind of talk about the formula grant, talk about how important it is for the COAs, make sure the legislators know what we do use it for, what, you know, maybe shortcomings there are, and anything else that might be relevant to our needs throughout the state.
Is this open to anyone?
Well, it is, so they do want a good crowd. I mean, I think it's relevant to people who are, you know, looking to advocate.
And is it just sort of morning? It's not all day, is it?
No, it's not all day. Oh, gosh, it's a breakfast.
Okay.
So it's an hour and a half.
Okay. Right.
I mean, they like to talk,
Is it
but
at the Marshall Senior
it's at the
Center?
Marshfield Senior Center, so, I'm sorry, I was getting to that. So it's next Friday at 9 AM, Marshfield Senior Center. You know, and we're all providing, each of us are contributing an aspect of the breakfast. I mean, technically, it's in the newsletter, and citizens are invited, but board members may feel that it's an important thing to do, and you are welcome to do that. We do need reservations, so let me know.
By when?
By when? I would think by,
Tuesday maybe, or is it?
you know
when
what,
is the
I'm not back until Thursday, so you know what,
17th is Friday.
I'd like to go.
okay. I was gonna say by Wednesday, but you know what, if you would like to go and you wanna let me
I'll
know.
have to check on the schedule.
I mean, even if you send me an email, you will get, and I'm out of the office response, but I will get the email. I'm not out of the country, I will get the email. And I can send it off. So you can, by Wednesday for sure, but sooner if you can. And Leslie, I have
I'll
you.
go.
Okay. If you've never been to the Marshfield Senior Center, it's a good chance.
Yeah, it's really nice, yeah.
And, you know, that's only one floor, and I not liked it for that reason, because I appreciate the 2 floors. The one floor, you know, it's got this long corridor with doors, you know, it's almost like a hospital floor, but just saying. But their great room is nice. They are, they are.
Are they adding a second floor?
I believe they are. I believe that's what they would like to do.
Anyways, yeah.
Okay, moving on. Intergenerational pickleball, I do want everyone to know about that. It's also next Friday. You know, when we were talking on seniorities, and I had to say 3 or 4 things in a row, all happening Wednesday, November 8th, in this room. And it was like just back to back, one on top of the other. And Friday is a couple of the same things. Anyway, but it was initiated actually by the high school, so I can't take any credit, but the PE students are going to play 20 of our regular pickleball players in our program, so it should be great. There's 2 spots, so I think I might still take one.
Good.
Anyway, they're gonna have refreshments, and it's gonna be great, at 1:30 in the afternoon on Friday. Policeman's Christmas Luncheon, we know about that, it's in the newsletter, Saturday, December 9th. We take the reservations and do provide transportation. And we are planning a holiday party luncheon ourselves for December 21st. Having a friend who comes and plays the piano for us and does name that tune. And it's very popular, so she's coming back and bringing dessert, she's wonderful. Linda Chuckman, yeah. Everybody knows her, I know. But, you know, we haven't decided on the menu yet, so if anybody has ideas, or we're actually thinking of trying to solicit some donations from the restaurants here, which we haven't really done an awful lot of. We did do a little bit for the health fair, actually. We did get the sandwiches from both Maria's and Cersei's, which was great.
Oh, nice.
That was very nice, and they did that last
And they're
year.
very good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm sure. So lastly, just, you know, more thoughts, I guess, to consider, even not right now, but towards campaign and branding. So the logo will help if we can come up with one, and certainly I'll bring it to the board and let you, you know, we'll just sort of take a look at what Jane comes up with. But, you know, to spread the word about programs, activities, what we do, I would like to include the pop-up Kindness Rocks activity, you know, bring that to different places or community events or other organizations, other maybe businesses, whatever. And have us represented everywhere we can. So once we have more information, of course, going to coffees or different things with community groups, friends of people on the board maybe. But also, I'll recommend a St. Patrick's Day parade float. I mean, I'm not really saying I want to do it. Don't tell Ed. But we should do it, and I felt that way before, but it is a bit of work.
It is.
But now I think it's really
Not
almost
just a van, like a float.
like a float, a flatbed, but we could do a partial building, maybe just a facade or an entrance. Just an initial thought, and having people dressed up representing some of the things that we do that they don't know about, you know, active, whatever it is. It's just an idea. And we need a band. We need a band. So, you know, break some of the stereotypes a little bit, but also just get us out there, you know, every way we can. So I've talked about that before with Heritage Days, but maybe a 5K, you know, a run and a walk, something that we could plan, maybe not around Heritage Days, because I think then there's too much to do, but, I mean, I'd love to do it on Mother's Day, but, the fire department already does that, so we have to think of another time. anyway, these are just some ideas as we move forward. There's some hashtags in my report, if anybody has thoughts about that, but honestly, I need to get, better at, Facebook we do, but we need to get a little bit better at that. I did go to a workshop on that at my conference, and Twitter. And what they did say is even if our seniors aren't on Twitter, it's okay, and gradually things do just sort of have a snowball effect. But even if it's the police seeing it, or the fire department who is on Twitter, or the school, whoever else might see it, it does slowly infiltrate the community, even our seniors. So it is important, it's the way it is now, and so the more clever we can be, the better. I think people will start to notice, so just a couple of thoughts. That's it. Oh, gosh, I'm sorry. So Lisa's report, for activities, I won't read it, but certainly we have had a lot going on, and October has been a busy month, and she did look at past Octobers to show that our total event signups for the month, for everything, was over 1,200. And last year was only 800 approximately, and the year before that was 700 approximately. So using that 1 month, that was very nice to see.
All the months are up, every month, every
Every
year,
month, yeah.
every year.
Yeah, year over year, everything's up.
And it's interesting, I had printed out for the month, even just the idea that of those 1,200, yeah, but recreation, for instance, and fitness and exercise are our biggest numbers, you know, every month really, but in October, that was certainly the case. Balance for Life, we are fielding unduplicated 57 people. So whether they go all 3 times or just once a week or twice a week, we are having a class 3 times, and that's 60 people. Probably at least 60 and probably more, because really new people are coming always, and they may sign their name, they may not, and they don't always have cards. But the mobile scanner has worked out very well for getting people into the system who, you know, are off-site at different activities. It's actually been a worthwhile purchase. I did purchase that with the formula grant, so that was also something that cut into our funds. And then volunteers are on the other page. Right, October events, so the 1,200, of course, was duplicated, and I know often we ask about that, so the actual number of people is 361, but the number of times those 360 people came was 1,200.
4 times.
Okay, so that I would point out. Okay, moving on to transportation. That number's up also. Trips are being counted there, so the number of trips that we're doing, day trips for people, whether, we also started the supper club once a month at night. May become a lunch club in the winter, but I think it's only been maybe 6 or 7 people, but I think that's worthwhile, and more will, it will increase, no doubt. But they're enjoying those and they're worthwhile. So the numbers, you can see the biggest number is still the medical out of town, and that's the one we contract out to Social Community Action Council. But shopping is another big number. And then if you want to look at Jenny and Laura's, just to not keep you here too late. And they're back to back. So Laura just gives me this report quarterly, and actually this was for July, August, and September. I should have included it last month. But still, her clients 55 plus, you know, she meets with them, deals with sometimes ongoing counseling. You can notice the number for mental health issues, big number. And really, it probably is most of what she is doing today, now. She does back up Jenny with some food assistance, and sometimes that's just part of her other support. If she does come across a need, financial need for someone in particular that isn't covered, she will put out a message to sort of the community. There is somewhat of a clergy group,
Yeah.
but beyond that, and most of the time someone responds, if not multiple people respond to that
Yep.
need. So she has her network, I guess I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And the hoarding response team, she actually had to postpone, however, for the first time, the support groups from starting in October to November, just because the numbers weren't up yet. So there's the peer-led support group, which did start, but there's also the support group that meets here. And they just would like to see a larger number for that, because we do pay Suzanne for that. So. And Jenny's report, so. Her number is 69 interactions. She's going to be at our next meeting, Jenny. And there is, she's working on the idea that, you know, these interactions that she's talking about, the way we put things in the database when she meets with someone, what is it, what category does it come under? And it's not very comprehensive, and it also doesn't begin sort of to always reflect exactly what she does, or as much as she does for some individuals and in some meetings. So she's gonna talk about that next month, actually, and kind of highlight some of these and talk about the categories and what she does do for them. But you know about field assistance, of course.
I was gonna ask, is Jenny seeing, is that fuel assistance sort of,
It has started.
it's time, yeah?
It's a long period, it's at least October through, last year it was, they were allowed to apply through May, I believe, so it's a long period for
Okay.
financial assistance. And she is the point guard for everybody in the community, not just seniors, actually, they all go through us, because we don't decide, we just facilitate, and we send it to Social Community Action Council. Housing, people with housing issues certainly come in here and they just need help with an application, but, or sometimes they're looking for it, and both Laura and Jenny deal with people who maybe are losing housing here and need alternatives, once that's the case. She backs up Norm a lot on Medicare and Medicaid because he can't see everybody. And does a lot of in-home visits for elders at risk as well, Mark.
And how did that presentation go? I saw that was on
Oh, the presentation
YouTube.
did go
YouTube.
well, I didn't sit through it, but it was taped, so that is, thanks for bringing that up. So we had the Medicare Part
Medicare
D
open enrollment,
informational meeting.
it was taped from a couple days ago, and it's on YouTube.
Well, it should be on the cable channel as well.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah.
Whatever, is that 9? One's government and one is community.
Yeah.
And I think that's 9.
It was a very good class,
Yes, there was, maybe 25.
at least.
So
It
that
gets confusing.
is Mark.
It's good to get some help. Does anybody have any questions for Linda on any and all of that information?
I just wonder, should we be meeting to talk further about, talking points, or,
Mhm.
and we need you? What do we wanna do?
Well, I'd love to put together a PowerPoint presentation and when we talk about talking points, pictures from here, pictures of other senior centers and what they look like, numbers for what we do and what, you know, we could do, unmet needs, you know, whatever,
And
we wanna
maybe a
target.
schedule as to where we may go once we get all the answers?
Right. Well, I guess I,
Would that be part of the meetings, if we start meeting?
right.
I think so.
Yeah.
I would say
I
so.
think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We'll work on that next month. No, it's Christmas.
One month to Christmas?
Well, also, I just wanna keep on moving here, because I don't have any subcommittee updates, but does anybody else?
No, that's what we're
We were
talking
talking
about
about
now.
Okay.
Yeah,
You know.
okay. So, we could decide when to meet, we can meet in December, I don't mean to say we can't, we could meet in November or December, we're gonna meet before this meeting, but. So in terms of marketing and advocacy, I think that was one that,
Yeah.
would be timely.
Yeah.
Is that gonna tie into the senior center?
I think
or
that
is
would
it
be the
other
focus.
things? I mean, you're doing the marketing,
Well, we've always needed help, and the
Right.
branding could become a part of that.
Mhm.
And we've always needed a little help getting things sort of out there, if somebody wants to write something, if somebody wanted to. So that would be a good brainstorming session as to what
When
kinds
is
of
he
things.
coming back? He has something to say, right? Is he gonna come back with something?
Who?
John?
John?
Who didn't say?
Well,
He said he'll come back to you in 2 weeks. Did he say something like that?
next
I
month,
didn't hear that.
next month,
Wishful thinking.
hopefully.
But we're gonna try and chase him down and establish more of a communication schedule, but, I mean, in terms of what John's got going on with the board, it sounds like the first thing is to get the RFP out for project manager,
Yes.
Mhm.
so,
So maybe they'll just have more information on that.
yeah.
Okay. Do people feel that you want to meet in December about this, or do you want to start first of the year? What should we do? I mean,
It would be great to meet before that. It would
so
be
you're
great.
coming back when, November 15th?
I will be back next week, the 16th and the 17th. Those are kind of busy days. So the next week is Thanksgiving week, but it's relatively,
The week after, right, it's Thanksgiving, yeah.
but I could meet that week if you're around, and if you're not, then now we're looking at the
First week of
29th.
Well, are we talking about your subcommittee meeting?
Yes.
Or are you talking about
Are you?
establishing,
Or a board
establishing on?
Subcommittee.
Okay.
Subcommittee.
Okay.
Right, is
But I
that?
think, isn't it all tied in now?
It is, oh,
Yeah.
It
okay.
really is.
Well, are we gonna establish by an open meeting? I guess that's my first question.
You know, I don't know if we need to yet.
Right.
I'd rather,
Yeah, not yet.
Okay, then.
I was,
Why don't we just-
January may be great for that,
Okay.
maybe when we hear more.
Yeah, but our next scheduled meeting is
December
December.
14th, I believe. I didn't put that in my report.
December 14th,
14.
yeah.
Okay. But prior to that, a subcommittee meeting, if anybody wanted to do
Right.
that, would be
Maybe that first
very
week
open
in
to that.
December.
That's great. So the last week in November would be great.
Something out.
Pick a couple dates, send them to me, and we can send it out.
Okay.
That'd be great. And listen, you too, actually, I think, are we a committee of two? Oh, good, okay. All right, well, that's another one. That's a budget, that's my finance committee.
Yeah.
So, you guys
I will
tell me
let you know when I
you
get
need
back, okay, because I have to do it, it's due by December
I was
1st.
gonna say it's due soon,
Okay.
right?
Just
December
go.
1st or January
that.
1st?
I mean, it's always been easy, let me tell you, it's always been bing, 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 you know, nothing increased, just operational. I had what money I needed. But suddenly there's a little bit more to it right now. Okay. How's that?
That's good. Does anybody else have any business? Do I hear a motion to adjourn our meeting?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Second, very good. We'll see you all soon.
All right, thank you.
Don't see you
Thank
between
you
now
all.
and Thanksgiving. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.